I was going to miss out the next verse. It looked like one of these verses that had just dropped in from somewhere, completely randomly. And it's quite possible that that's the case. This verse has been put here out of order or by mistake. But actually, if we take it in a metaphorical sense, it actually fits in quite nicely. So let's have a look at it. Verse 866. Having eaten, he will rise holding the bowl empty. He will have his mouth well cleansed of offensive and injurious matter. He is to conduct himself thus towards food. So this seems like one of these tedious stipulations that guide every moment of monastic life. But in the context of the last few verses and what we've been looking at, it's really about the mind. It's really about the mind and what the mind eats, what we turn our attention to, either out there or in our thoughts. So this is the bowl of food. The bowl of food refers to mental activity. And most of that mental activity is unnecessary. The bowl is overflowing. We have this huge supermarket. In fact, back in verse 859, we heard mention of the wealthy merchant who moves on with mentation. So we're like the wealthy merchant. We've got all these things we can buy, all these transactions we can engage with. I've sometimes described it as the child in the sweet shop or the kid in the candy shop, hypnotized by all the possibilities, which one to choose, which ones to go for. I'll have some of that, 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 with the end result being that you get sick. You get sick. So this is the opposite. We're actually aspiring to have an empty bowl. We eat what we need to eat. In other words, we think about simply what we need to think about. The mind is continually dwelling on stuff, and we can rationalize this, justify it, think, oh, I need to work things over in my mind. Well, if you have a particular problem, be clear about that problem, and sure, work it over, but that's not what's happening most of the time. The mind is just indulging itself. It's like a dog that's got access to an infinite amount of food. It's going to keep eating and eating and eating and eating until it can't even walk anymore. So after you've done a bit of thinking, you'll have your mouth well cleansed of offensive and injurious matter. I've mentioned before, when I first realized this private world called the mind, when I was a kid, I realized I can think whatever I like up here and nobody need know. It's my own private little world. It was very exciting. It was very exciting. I wonder if other kids get this kind of realization, that I could actually think anything I liked and nobody could hear me. Nobody could see what I was thinking. Well, in a way the genie had been let out of the bottle, but also a beast had been unleashed. The idea that I was going to have to be careful about what I let inside my mind didn't occur to me. Didn't occur. And I've been struggling with it ever since. So the thing is, we tend to believe that we can handle anything that we might look at, whether it's a horror movie or some dreadful news or looking at certain types of images. But can we really? Are we not enslaved into a horrible kind of feedback loop? It's like our whole mental life has collapsed into an ugly little knot. So we have to really think, is what my mind dwelling on? Is it offensive or injurious? It's very easy to tell. If you feel better afterwards, then the chances are, yeah. And I don't mean just a short-term better in the long term. If your mind does have a tendency to dwell on unwholesome images and all the rest of it. Now, I'm not going to go into what's meant by unwholesome images, because it isn't necessarily in the images themselves, it's in the effect it's having on you. That's what's unwholesome. So I'm not passing judgment or suggesting any kind of censorship. This is between you and what you indulge your mind in. But if you suspect, yeah, this isn't the best quality use of my mind, then feed your mind something else. Feed your mind something else. This might even involve engaging the body in certain kind of activity, because the state of the body also feeds the mind. So it isn't just a purely mental thing, it's also a physical thing. Perhaps put yourself in a different situation, put your body into a different mode, exercise mode perhaps, do some dance or some yoga or Tai Chi. Put on some music. Classical music's a good one. You know, there's certain things we can do in order to make our mind a nicer place, to tidy it up a bit. So we're being quite practical here. We're not dealing in this verse with spiritual insight. We're not dealing with coming back to all-embracing awareness. But the thing is, when our mind is a mess, it's quite difficult to come back to pure awareness. It's not impossible, you can do that. But as enlightenment practitioners, this is when we can start undertaking more conventional disciplines, more conventional spiritual disciplines even, or disciplines associated with spirituality. These disciplines do not take you to spiritual insight, but they can certainly help the enlightenment practitioner sort out their affairs. So whenever you've used your mind, whenever you've thought about what you need to think about, then allow the bowl to be empty. Allow the mind to rest. Observe whatever mood tones are remaining and how they are prompting certain thoughts. Because these mood tones tend to want to fill the bowl with offensive and injurious matter. So let's just keep emptying it and conducting ourselves in this way towards our mental food.